Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. I have a busy weekend coming up. On Saturday, I have the Middlesex Bonsai show in London, Ontario, Canada. And then on Sunday, I have a car show in town here. And I'm going to take the old 1972 Ford F-250 crew cab truck to the car show. Yesterday, I took the truck to the car wash and got it cleaned up, but I still have a lot of scrubbing to do. There's a lot of algae that built up on it over the winter. I'm going to take the capper off for the car show and yeah, kind of have a different look for the truck. I'm taking the Micra to the Bonsai show, so I can't carry a lot of trees with me because I have to take the trees and the stands. And you would think, you know, with all these trees I have on the go here that I'd have lots of trees for the show, but a lot of them are different stages of development and they're not really show ready. So I have a few trees I can take to the show and maybe some possibilities. So I'm going to get out the trees for the show and get them ready. One possible planting for the show is my Portulacaria afra forest. I gave it quite a severe pruning and it's just starting to fill in, so it's kind of in between looking really bare and really full. So it might look okay for the show. I'll clean it up and we'll see how it looks. Here's a look at the planting on the stand that I got from the thrift store. So yeah, it's a little sparse looking. There's a few long shoots on the trees that have extended and need pruning back. So I'll do that and then we'll have a look and see if it's ready for the show or not. I think some of the trees are looking quite good. I'm having a look at the planting. So I've got a shoot here that's extended way out. I'll prune it back like that. There's a shoot here that's extended way out. I'll prune the tip off. And there's one here too. And I'm going to prune it quite far back to here. There's one kind of crossing the trunk line here that I don't want at all. So I'm going to take it right off. Like that. The ones up top are just starting to fill in nicely and the growth is really compact. There's an old leaf I can take out here. There's a shoot out the back here that's a little distracting and it's quite low down on the tree. I think that has to come right off. I'm not sure why I left that on. Yeah, that's got to come right off. So off it comes. That kind of cleans up the trunk line a bit. I'm just looking at the other trees now. They're not too bad. They're fairly compact. There's an old leaf here that doesn't look so good. Take that one away. Yeah, so the other trees, they're not bad. I could prune this shoot back a little more compact. And the one back here is too long. That could come off. There's a shoot over here I can take off. There's an upright one that's getting a bit too long. I'll just take the tip off it. There's one here that's getting a little long. Take the tip off that and this one. This back tree could be pruned a little more compact. Here's a look at the forest now. So yeah, it's looking reasonable. It would be nice if this tree had filled out a little more, but I'm sure in, you know, a week or two it'll look even better. But I think it's looking okay. It's a unique kind of planting. I think it'll be interesting to have in the show. I am going to give it a water now. Water with a little bit of fertilizer in it. Give the trees a good thorough drenching. Okay, here I go with the water and fertilizer. So I'll just do a general watering first. So I'll give this a really good drenching. Make sure all the soil is saturated. I'll just let that soak in for a bit. And water it again. So I'll let that sit for a little bit, and then I'll tilt the pot up to drain any excess moisture out of the soil. And that'll be good. That'll I won't have to water this now until, well, probably, 3 or 4 days maybe. It depends on the weather. If it's really sunny like this, maybe it'll dry out in a couple of days, but generally it takes 3 to 4 days before I water once again. So I'll tilt the pot up now. Put some wood blocks under the one side, and that'll drain any excess moisture out of the soil. Keep the trees really, really happy. You can see after I tilted it up that there's more water flowing out of the pot now. Many years ago, I worked in London, Ontario, Canada, and that's where the show is this weekend. I used to go to the club meetings after work, and it was quite a strong club, but slowly the numbers diminished. But the club always stayed around. It was kind of just underground. They never had official meetings or anything, and they didn't have any shows. So I think this show this weekend will be the first show in probably close to 20 years. So it'll be quite exciting. There's some surrounding clubs in the London area that will be putting trees in the show, so I think I'll see a lot of trees that I've never seen before, so that'll be quite refreshing, and I'm really looking forward to it. Another possible show tree is my Dwarf Schefflera banyan style planting. Again, it's a little early. The new leaves are just starting to come out on the tree, so it's a mix of old winter leaves and the new summer growth. So what I need to do is I need to thin out some of the older leaves that aren't looking good. There's some yellow ones at the back of the planting. I'll do that. I'll clean it up and then decide, well, is it ready for the show or maybe it's too early. So time will tell. It's always nice to display your trees when they're looking their best. And I hate to display trees when they're not looking their best. But sometimes you just have to do it. If you don't have, a spectacular selection of trees for a show, you've got to make do with what you have. Otherwise, you never show trees. So, yeah, you can see here, there's a leaf that doesn't look so good. It's kind of yellow, so I'll remove that one. And hopefully, the tree doesn't look too sparse after pruning away the yellowy kind of leaves. There's a lot at the back here that are quite yellow from the winter, and there's a lot of new growth coming in. See that? It had scale on it. I've sprayed it since and gotten rid of the scale, but yeah, some of these leaves aren't the greatest looking. And if I prune them all away, then the tree will look quite sparse. So it's kind of, I'll take away the worst looking leaves and try and keep my better looking ones. And then I'll have a look and see if the tree looks too thin. There's a yellow one here. This one's not so good looking. And I'll give this tree a spray with soap and water once again. Make sure there's no active scale insects on it. That's another thing. You want to bring your trees to a show in very good health. You don't want to bring them with insects on them. Otherwise they can spread to other people's trees and the people won't be so happy. I've seen some trees that were a little iffy at shows, and a lot of people just avoid putting their tree beside those ones that don't look so good in case they have insects on them. Yeah, so you can see this has gotten quite sparse, but it is at the back, so maybe it'll still look okay. That one's got to go. And I think this one has to go. The rest aren't too bad. There's, well, maybe these ones back here look a little iffy. There's one here. Maybe this one too. Okay, the back is looking quite reasonable now. Let's keep rotating it around. Maybe this one's got to go. It's looking not so hot. I think this one too. This one. So once all these new leaves, you know, these spring leaves come in, I will remove all the old leaves. Okay, let's go back to the front and see how this is looking. Well, there is a look at the planting. It still looks quite reasonable. It's got a nice shape to the canopy. It hasn't gotten, you know, too overgrown with the new growth yet. You can see the structure of the tree, which is kind of nice to see that balance between foliage and the tree structure. So I think that's a good possibility for the show. Now the only thing that doesn't look so good is the landscape. It's just bonsai soil and there's a lot of roots sticking up out of the soil that would need cleaning up, and I would have to moss it, which I can do. It just means I would have to go collect a lot of moss. This is a big planting. I would need a lot of moss to cover this surface. So I think, you know, I should do that. If I'm going to put it in the show, it definitely needs to be mossed up. And I have a stand large enough for this tray, this pot. It's a plastic pot, but it looks okay. It's reasonable. I mean, someday, if I can afford it, I'll get a nice ceramic pot for it, but at the moment, this is as good as it gets. It's nice to have your tree looking absolutely spectacular at a bonsai show. It's a goal to reach for, and you know, it doesn't happen all the time. A tree can look really good for a couple of weeks and then maybe the flowers fall off, or it starts to get too overgrown and it needs pruning back, and after the pruning it doesn't look as good. So timing is kind of critical. If you're, you know, want to put this tree in a major show, you've really got to think about it far in advance and get the tree ready, so when the show time comes around, the tree is absolutely looking its best. But even if it's not looking the best, you get some good feedback at the show and you see your tree compared to other trees, and it can be quite eye-opening and a learning experience. So don't be afraid of putting your trees in shows. It's something that the more you do, the better you get at it. So you've got to start somewhere. So start with a humble looking tree, put it in the show, try and make it look the best you can, and you know, you'll only get better at displaying trees in the future. I'll give the Schefflera a spray with the soap and water now, so here I go. Coming underneath the tree. And I've got to rotate it around so I get it from all sides. I don't have my turntable here. I took it away when I brought that other tree out on the stand. So I'm just rotating it manually, which is all right. And I'll let that sit for 3 or 4 minutes, and then I'll give the planting a thorough rinse. Okay, it's time to rinse the tree off now, or trees. So I'll let that drain, and then I'm going to try it out on a stand that Matt made. See how it looks. I've never put this planting on a stand before, I don't think, so I've got a few choices of stands. Matt made me 3 large ones, and I'll try it out and see how it looks. Just like the succulents, I'm tilting the pot up to to drain the excess water out. This pot was a gift from the Bonsai Supply from Mari and Jerome. So thanks very, very much. And this is a Fuku Bonsai pot. It's a plastic pot, but it's a very nice one. Like, it's got nice corners on it. It's a nice size. Yeah, so we'll see how it looks on the stand. That'll be very interesting. Here's a look at my Scheffleras on the stand. So my initial thought is the stand looks too big and heavy. So I do have a smaller one that I'll try out and see how that looks. Here is a look at the Schefflera on the smaller stand. This was also made by Matt. So that looks much better. The stand doesn't overpower the planting. So I think that's the best stand I have for these trees. So that's what it will go to the show like. So my next step is I need to get this forest floor all cleaned up, and that is going to take a while. There's a lot of roots in the air. I've got a lot of aerial roots in here, which are nice. There's my snake in there, but I need to get moss underneath the trees. So yeah, I'll have to go collect some moss and then begin planting and do a little bit of root pruning as I'm planting the moss. There's a root in there that's growing from somewhere. That might have to be pruned away. But yeah, the trees are developing nicely. They're getting a lot of character to them. They're not, you know, because the planting is growing in size, the trunks on the trees don't look thick or massive. And I think that's okay. If I wanted the trunks to look thick, I would have to hard prune the entire planting, making it more compact. Maybe, you know, the canopy would be, bring it in by a third all the way around, and it would certainly make the trunks pop out more. But I think the interest in this planting is the kind of winding branches and all these aerial roots that are dropping down. And yeah, there's a lot to look at here, which is always nice in a bonsai. Julian and Emma are cleaning up the abart for the car show. It's looking pretty shiny. I went out and I collected a big bag of moss. So it was just growing on pavement. Big sheets of it. Now, it's fairly green. It's not the greatest, but so I'll soak it in my tray of water here. Get it ready to put on the Schefflera forest. Yeah, so I got lots of it. And some of it's thinner and some is a little thick. So I'll try and arrange it the best I can. The sidewalk out front has some good moss on it too, but I'm kind of saving that. I'm sure I'll use it for a smaller planting. It's really fine. I think I can use this a little bit coarser moss on this Schefflera planting because it's large. Yeah, so I'll just lay out all the moss, get it soaking nicely, and then I can apply it to the forest. Yeah, there's a really nice thin sheet there. And I tried to get a variety of mosses. I got some light colored ones. I got some dark moss, thin moss, thick moss. See, there's a light colored moss. Yeah, just to provide a bit of variety in the planting. I've got 2 trays of moss all set out soaking, that tray there and the one over here. So I'll start applying the moss now and see how it looks. Julian has got his car all ready for the car show. It's polished, waxed. Wow, is it ever shiny. Looks amazing. Yeah, I thought it was clean before, but now, holy, chrome's showing up. Yeah, it's looking really, really nice. Yeah, so that's ready for the car show. I have been working away mossing up the Schefflera. I'm almost done. I have a little bit to do at the back, and I didn't run out of moss this time, so that's good. So there's a look at it. It definitely makes the trees look more miniature. It makes the trees look like giant trees. Yeah, I think as this moss kind of greens up, it'll look even better. And as the canopy fills in, so probably, you know, a week after this London show, it'll look really, really good. But I think it looks good for the show. I think it's going to look quite nice. I've got my Schefflera all mossed up and ready for the show. So, time to get out another tree. The next trees for the London show is my Chinese-inspired penjing. These are native red maple trees. And I've got a fisherman there, a hint of water down there. So I prune these back, and you can see the new growth coming in. It's kind of a reddish color up top. Yeah, I think, you know, a little penjing like this will be welcome at the show. It'll be something a little different. I'm heading off to the orchard now to work on the fruit trees, doing some weeding, some pruning, some wood chipping. So I'll leave this for tomorrow. I've got to pick out a stand for this penjing. I've got to get some accent plants together. I've got to get the truck all cleaned up and ready for the show. So it's going to be a busy day tomorrow. So I'm going to do this in part 2 of this series. So that's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.